Tim, hi.
Hey, what's up, girl? How you doing?
So nice to see you. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. And, I can't keep up with this Epstein story, Tim, so I'm counting on you to fill in the blanks.
It is a crazy story. You'll be happy to know I was just on vacation last week, so I've had to catch up for a couple days myself. And I was with my most non-political friends. Went dark, and one of my besties, she reads nothing, consumes nothing. She was like, I don't want to see any news where people are yelling at each other. She's like, if you just tell me something I could watch where nobody's yelling, which is obviously not my show. And I was like, are you watching Katie Couric on her Instagram or something? And she's like, I saw that she was back, so I added you one more subscriber during that
Oh,
vacation.
thank you
I just
very
want to
much,
let you
Tim.
know.
That's awfully nice of you. Well,
Anyway, I'm up to speed. I've been on this for a while because the whole thing, I never really understood why it was a right wing conspiracy in the first place. To be honest, like Epstein obviously traveled in elite circles, so I understood why it was kind of an anti-elite conspiracy, right? It's or a fact in a lot of ways, right? Like this feeling of what was happening, like he's in these elite circles, but those elite circles included Donald Trump. And they included, obviously prominent Democrats, but also prominent Republicans and non-political people. And and so when he gets arrested and then goes to jail and then dies in prison, it's during the Trump presidency in 2019, right? And so this kind of now this is the one element of this, because I hate kind of calling it an Epstein conspiracy, because what happened to these girls was not a conspiracy. I mean, women were
and
trafficked. This is a
in
true
fact,
thing.
Tim, after we chat, David Boyes is going to join me, and
Yeah,
obviously he represented a lot of the victims. So
yeah,
I think that's his point. Like people are forgetting about the victims in all of
yeah,
this, but like everything in our current culture, it has become like highly politicized. But
yeah.
what's interesting is you're finally seeing some cracks in the MAGA base, right?
Right.
So let's talk about that. I mean, well, I guess, why are people so obsessed with this list and MAGA in particular?
So this takes us back to this 2019. He dies, and then it's like, well, he didn't kill himself, and it's a lot of MAGA-oriented people that were associated with it. Well, why, right? And the answer is that going all the way back to 2015, so 10 years now, now this does take us. The story's hard because you kind of dip back and forth between conspiracy and real crimes that happened. But this part was the conspiracy. You remember QAnon, right?
Of
The
course.
people holding the Q and the Pizzagate and people at Comet Pizza. The MAGA base was told that there was an elite cabal, of people that were committing crimes against children and that are never held to account, and that Donald Trump was going to be the one to stop it, right? And so the Epstein story is kind of where this kind of conspiracy dips into reality, where there was somebody that was in an elite cabal of some kind that was doing crimes against young people. And so, like, the conspiracy and the reality kind of fused, right? The QAnon and the Pizzagate stuff and the Epstein stuff, like, all fused into one big narrative among Trump supporters. And so, this time when he was running, and it was a lot more of the id of Trump, right? He had a lot more of kind of, the Cash Patels around him. It's different than the first time, right? Like
Yeah.
where he really hired a lot of traditional Republicans. This time he was bringing in a lot of people from this like MAGA media conspiratorial world. And so all these folks were thinking, finally, it's going to happen. He's back in there. We're going to get the bad people. We're going to get the Democrats and the financiers and the Hollywood people that were involved in this. And so then for Trump, 6 months in, to say to them, well, actually, there's nothing to see there, nothing there. It's a betrayal of like this very fundamental thing that MAGA media folks, the people that consume MAGA media, had accepted as true. And so, unlike some of his other lies, right, like where he was kind of fudging about things that didn't, he was pulling the wool over the other people's eyes, the Democrats to the left or the media or whatever. In this case, I think rightly, a lot of them feel like, wait a minute, you're you're treating us like we're idiots, and now you're telling us that we need to move on. But this was part of the deal. Like, this was part of the contract. Like, you're gonna get back in there, and then we're gonna get the bad guys. And now that we're not, now you're telling us we're not, and just stupid. It's a Democratic conspiracy. Like, and so
But
I
Tim,
just
let me
think that
ask you, can I
yeah,
just ask you a quick question? I mean,
please.
it's been known for many years that Donald Trump had a relationship with Epstein, right?
Yeah.
Were the MAGA folks just okay with that? that they think, oh, well, this guy has this elite cabal of bad people hurting young women, but it's okay if our guy is a member of that
Yeah.
cabal?
Well, I think there now I'm getting really into, like, the anthropology of MAGA, but so we'll subsect it into 3 groups. There's the Trump cult crew, the, like, red hats, Q sign at the rally. A lot of them, I think, would tell you that Trump was in these circles because he was gonna expose it, right? Like, that was part of the deal, right? Like, obviously, he was pictured with Epstein. He's exposing it all from the
Oh,
inside.
that he was, like, undercover or
Yeah,
something?
this is the cultish part of the group, right? I don't
Wow.
we're not we can I don't
Okay.
I'm gonna live up to my promise to my friend and not yell and mock. But
Okay.
so I think that's one category. And there's another category of people that didn't really engage in this stuff that deeply. David French writes about this very well. Like, there's some MAGA people that, like, the media they consume, they never hear any bad info. This week might have been the first time they've seen those pictures, right? Like, because they're just in such a bubble. So that's part of it. Some folks just weren't aware. And then I think that there's this new group of Trump voters, like the manosphere types. Your Joe Rogan view, the Andrew Schultz,
Charlie
like,
Kirk.
yeah. Well, Charlie Kirk's more of a traditional MAGA. I'm thinking more like the comedian podcast
Oh, got
guys.
it.
Like those guys, Theo Vaughn, and I don't know, like, they came to this as like, well, okay, yeah, Trump knew him, and, like, I don't think that he's, like, a secret cult guy, but, like, he is gonna challenge, like, he's got the cojones to challenge the status quo, right? Like, and he's gonna go after these guys in a way that the establishment wouldn't, because 'cause they're too weak. And I think those guys, you see, Trump is getting mocked by those guys, right? Like, his base might come around and come back to him, right? Because they have so many times before. Those guys, I've been watching some of those like comedian bro podcasts who like were really new to MAGA. Some of those guys voted for Hillary, right, or weren't voting before, and then came
Yeah.
around recently. Those guys were like, do you think I'm stupid? Right? Like, do you think I'm stupid? Really? There was nobody else involved in this? Like, it was just Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, and 1,000 young women were victims, and nobody there was there, like, so I think though that group is gonna be the one that is particularly, not buying what he's selling.
Yeah. Well, maybe also the first group of Trump people who really, as you said, thought he was going to fulfill their wishes or their
Right.
fantasy of getting back to, at these people. But what's interesting to me is that Trump seems to be kind of okay to dismiss some of these people. He's not really placating them. In a social media post this morning, he appeared to disown his supporters who were upset. This is what he wrote: my past in all caps, supporters have brought into this bullshit, blank, 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 hook, line, and sinker. He added, let these weaklings continue forward and do the Democrats' work. Don't even think about talking of our incredible and unprecedented success because I don't want their support anymore.
I think that this is really me. I'm always hesitant, Katie, because we've been doing this for so long, to be like, this one's really gonna hurt Trump. Because, like, how many times has he risen from the dead and have people come around and forgiven him? But I don't know. My MAGA media consumption, the stuff that I consume to get out of my bubble, is I like the Bannon War Room podcasts. Bannon, say what you want about him, he's smart. We have disagree on a lot of stuff. But like I think they are genuine, right? Like, some of the Charlie Kirk stuff is a little performative. I think these guys are genuine about their America First beliefs, which I disagree with. And I was listening to them this morning and watching their kind of social media content, and some of them are mad about this. And I think that it's something that could stick with them. Maybe they're not going to abandon Trump over it, but there's this loss of trust. Trump was like different from other politicians. These people thought like, well, every politician lies or whatever. Everybody's a hypocrite, but Trump is different. Trump is not a politician. And this is very politician-y behavior. And to
Yeah.
me, I think it could be something that really sticks with them where they're like, I still like Trump, whatever. I'm still America First, but I don't really trust him anymore. And I think that he's gone established, whatever the phrasing they would use. And I think that that's a line that's going to remember, that they're weaklings, that they're past supporters. I don't, I think. it is. I don't know if it's like Hillary deplorables or whatever. It's like the kind of thing that people, people don't like to be treated like that, you know?
Yeah, Alan Dershowitz wrote a piece last night saying there's nothing to see here, folks. There's nothing in this file. It's been like redacted. What did he say? I read the whole thing last night. Do we have any quotes from? Anyway, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. But I think when I talk to David Boyes, I'm going to ask him about it. What do you
There's a
think?
great Julie Brown. I just want to say, I just want to shout her out, Julie K. Brown, Miami Herald. I don't know if you ever interviewed her. She was one of the key journalists on this. She wrote something yesterday for the Miami Herald, and I did a video version of it for YouTube just so people could see it. And because she answered this question, like, what are the files? What is in it? Because
Yeah,
people think, like, oh, it's like a list. It's like a list. And it's not that. That, like, there are a lot of FBI files that are public that are deeply redacted. You could unredact those. There were the computers that they took from his house in Manhattan. There's got to be, there's the evidence that was presented to the grand jury. So, it's not like a list like, oh, Epstein, had a little black book where he listed all the men that did bad stuff. But it's more like it's this combination of material, like how he made his money. A lot of people don't really, like, we don't really know. Like, we knew a couple of his clients, the Victoria's Secret guy, but like, so I think it's more like that, right? Which is there is others, like obviously there were co-conspirators
well,
and there were
Ghislaine
these
Maxwell.
investigations.
Ghislaine Maxwell, somebody just mentioned her. She apparently didn't she have a black book with like all the clients' names,
I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen it, but like she definitely was the organizer, though. Like she was
right?
like here's another thing that Jelaine could help tell. At least one, hey, David Boys would know this better than me, but at least one of the young women, of the girls that was assaulted, was working at Mar-a-Lago, and so Jelaine was like recruiting the girls, and then also kind of connecting
Yeah.
with some of the other financiers and some of the other people that were, assaulting them. And so, whether she had a single book or not, she certainly knows who was involved and was
Do
a
you think
coordinator.
why hasn't she talked? I guess she's appealing her case to the Supreme Court, right?
Yeah. She's in prison. It was interesting. She said that she wasn't offered a plea. And I don't like that. Now that gets outside of my wheelhouse a little bit, but like that's what she is saying, where like, usually in this kind of situation, it'd be like, okay, the government would say, you come testify, you show us who the other people were involved, and instead of 20 years or whatever she got, 25 years, we'll give you 12. Like it's
Yeah,
that, like that's kind of how this stuff works. And she said she wasn't offered that. And is that because the government at the time didn't want to, go after these other powerful men. They wanted to kind of they got her and him and they wanted to move on. Was it some other reason they didn't trust her? I don't know, but that's what she says is that. So what that she implies at least she had more information to trade and they didn't want it.
which is so interesting. I wonder if she'd ever do an interview.
I would. It seems to me like she'd want to. I mean, and I think this is something the Democrats get to just strategy should just say that, okay, like we're gonna call her, we're gonna subpoena her to testify if we win back the House. I mean that's a long time from now, a year and a half. So
Yeah. Mike Johnson is kind of split a little bit with
yeah.
Donald Trump on this, and Marjorie Taylor Greene has done that as well. What what do you think of the Democrats and how are they going to exploit sort of this whole situation, or how are they exploiting it?
I think that they were a little slow to the punch, but I think that it's good that they are going to talk that they should talk about it. I think that there is ways to talk about it that kind of ties to the broader message of Democrats, which is look, Donald Trump says he was for regular people, but what has he done? He's protecting the rich and powerful that were involved with Jeffrey Epstein. He passed a tax cut for the richest people in the country and cut SNAP benefits and Medicaid for the poorest. Like I think there's a way to you kind of tuck this into that message framework that works. And then also I just think continuing to put pressure on them to give more information. The example I always give, you remember the Benghazi hearings, all the
Of
Benghazi,
course.
Republicans did 40 of those, and eventually you begin to roll your eyes. Well, people that weren't paying attention closely back then might not know that it was during like all of the all the like when you say give us the Epstein files, all of the files that were turned over from Benghazi by the State Department, in one of those files, a Republican investigator saw that Hillary Clinton had a different email than they'd seen before. And that is how they realized that she had another server that was not the State Department server.
Yeah.
And that is what spiraled into the whole Hillary Clinton email scandal, whatever you think of that. And like the Jim Comey letter, right? All of that came out of a totally unrelated thing, And so if you're the Democrats, it's like, turn over every leaf here. I don't know. Maybe Trump's in the files. Maybe it's not. Maybe he's protecting one of his rich friends. Maybe he's, who knows, right? Like we don't know. But if you continue to kind of gather more information, you kind of don't know where it will go.
Yeah. I'm surprised the files haven't been leaked by anyone or,
It's like
it
DOJ.
hasn't gotten out more. And the other thing, I was with some people who are kind of run in these kind of highfalutin legal circles over the weekend. And one theorized that there are a lot of very wealthy Republican donors who would be implicated if this file became public. And I wonder if you have heard any sort of theories about what's in there.
Yeah, I think so, and I don't have any names besides the guy that I mentioned earlier, which is already public. I'm not doing anything. The Wexner, the Victoria's Secret guy,
Yeah,
who is a Trump supporter. But to me, let's put it this way: Trump is not a guy that's shown a lot of empathy for people in the past, and he hasn't shown any empathy for these victims. But think about the Me Too era. Trump was always on the side of the accused, right? He was always like, "Oh, are they getting a bad deal? Is their reputation getting defamed?" A- and so I wouldn't be surprised if Pam Bondi came to him and said, "Here's some of the things. There are a few sensitive names in here. Here they are," and for Trump to be like, "No, I don't want to embarrass my friend so and so, like with these like accusations from these tawdry women, right?" Like, I, I don't anyway. I don't know that happened, but that seems very much in his character, right? Like to
yeah,
me, that seems as likely as it's about him, as it's just that like he, because of the past accusations against him and his past behavior, you know, feels a whatever kinship against men who he thinks are wrongly accused or might
yeah,
be accused in, or might be, attached to something in a way that they don't deserve. And so I think that is a very legitimate rationale for what and the answer is not that they don't have more information. Like, they have
yeah,
more information, right? So the question is, why aren't they putting it out, right?
yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting to follow it, and I wonder if they're going to feel tremendous pressure to have to at least kind of dole some material out.
Yeah.
Is David ready?
I was kinda
So,
surprised. Yeah, we'll get to it. Just real quick, I was surprised they just did an interview. I just saw him. He was grabbed, like, walking from a place by a reporter, and they're asked, if you'd appoint a special counsel to look into this. And I always thought that might be his out. You appoint a special counsel, they take 18 months. We'll talk to you about this in 2027. And he bristled at that very much. Was like, nope, I don't have anything to do with this. I won't do this. So I thought that was noteworthy that isn't even something that he's looking into. Anyway,
interesting,
thanks for
interesting.
having me,
Well,
Katie.
this story won't go away. Tim, thank you for talking to me. David Boyce is up next if you want to watch what he has to say. It might
All
be
right. I think I
interesting.
gotta go. I think I gotta go pick up my girl from guitar lessons. But I'll
Oh,
catch you
okay.
next time. All right.
Okay.
I'll
All
see you
right. Bye,
soon.
Tim. Thanks.